Hello and welcome back to another episode of Supercoach Insider. My name is Ben.
And I'm Swiz.
And thank you for joining us. We're talking about Fremantle Dockers. And boy, oh boy, their premium podcast on the YouTube was absolutely ridiculous. Half an hour of premium content because they are extremely relevant and for draft leagues. Swiz, how are we doing today? Keen as a bean to talk about mid-prices and rookies.
I am, mate. I am. There's some interesting options here at Fremantle. Definitely some of these draft smokies that these eastern states don't talk about as much. And it's something with the draft relevance, and we talk about all the time. Who's in your league? Not too many Fremantle fans popping up in some of these leagues over here in Melbourne, especially. And even I'm sure up there in Queensland, mate. So yeah, some of these Fremantle players become very draft relevant, but even standard as well. So let's talk about some of these guys.
I agree. Who doesn't like purple as well? What a lovely color. Before we move on, SC Insider 100 on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. You can also find us on all the audio platforms as well. So Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, you name it. And the YouTube, which is the two-part special here, brought to you by myself, Ben, and your boy, Swiz. All right, let's crack on in and let's get on into the good stuff. Hopefully, Chris will be joining us for the the Gold Coast, the GWS, and the Hawks podcast. I believe he said he will make himself available. Man, Chris got a little bit going on right now, but we have his back, Swizzy, as always. Fremantle.
He's very big on,
now,
yeah, your boy Chris is very big on the socials at the moment, mate. He's doing some good work in the gym and doing some good work on the dating scene. So good on him.
Yes, and he did apologize to one of our listeners as well, saying, "Hey boys, I tried to hit you up before, and where you at?" So Chris actually did tweet back to apologize. And let me give him a little shout out because I know you're probably listening right here now. Tim Dean, surely we get the podcast coming out a bit quicker. I love them so much. Always look forward to listening to the podcast each week. What a nice little backhanded compliment there. So Timmy Smith, mate, or Tim Dream Smith, because apparently all his dreams are wet, mate, listening to us. So shout out to you.
I think I know a Timmy Smith, actually. I went to school with him. I wonder if it's the same bloke. So shout out to you, Timmy. If you are the same bloke, I hope you're going well, buddy.
There you go. He just wants more Swiz. He wants more piece of that pie. Getting into these mid prices now to start. Now I've got a real juicy one to start, boys. And by boys I mean everyone listening, and Chris, in theory, hypothetically, everyone out there in the Twitterverse on the line. The first one I want to touch on is H.Young. So he's 418,000, defender only. Am I game enough to pick him in standard? No, because I think it's kind of a guns and rookies approach, or at least guns and mid-pricer approach, loading up in defense. But H.Young, 418K, averaged 76.9 over 8 games last year, had some injuries, came back in average, 89.6 on the back end. So I thought that was very impressive on his return. Has some real potential. Now, here's why I'm sold. All right, so when we look at Youngie, basically, you say blink and you might have missed it, but one of the skills-based drills rebounding, H.Young assumed a midfield role at a stoppage. Young was also the man tipped by Andrew Brayshaw to fill the likely midfielder void left by Chera. Brayshaw said Young's running ability and elite disposal made him a good replacement, and coincidentally enough, Brayshaw and Young lined up on each other as Fremantle practiced a stoppage. Fellow defender Brandon Walker and speedster Michael Frederick matched up as well. So this was obviously before Frederick got injured. But Youngie, for me, I'm definitely looking at draft leagues. You already saw he averaged, 89.6 on the back end of the last 5 games. He is someone who could, very talented enough, what was he, a pick 8, top 10 pick, around that, could average you 90 plus. Swiz.
Yeah, mate. There's I think one keeper league I've got him in. So like the talent for that. He was meant to be playing that intercept role, but you'll never dismiss guys who are going to get some midfield time. So it's more likely to be more of that defensive midfielder. But yeah, if he's going to rotate back, hopefully take some intercept marks and then get the odd CBA. Yeah, it's definitely something in the future because that's another string to his bow. And somebody you should definitely be looking at in those drafts, especially if it's a keeper league. Yeah, definitely one that if he's there or around the mix, you got to look at him.
And he's such a good kick, though. He was drafted as an elite kick. So you imagine your Sarong's in there getting the tough ball, picks it up out of a contest, bang, pops it out to Young, and he just laces out and picks the best target. You need those kind of guys in there, and more teams are now starting to try and get a blend of types in that midfield It's not always as cut and dry or black and white as it used to be. Collingwood are now, they've actually identified 4 different types of midfielders to complement each other. You don't want all of the same type in there. So you have your De Goeys, your stringers, your Rainers, you have your explosive types, you have the outside, the runners, you have your big bulky guys in the middle, and then you have your good decision makers and your elite users. And Young is definitely a good decision maker and an elite user. So this is what teams are starting to come up with now. You see the Dogs trying to get some flexibility in there. I think it's going to be more of a shift towards the future where they've realized and identified that CBA's center bounce is one of your biggest opportunities to get forward momentum, right? And there's a positive correlation. There's a good word for you. A positive correlation between winning the center bounce and scoring, or at least having it down there to then try and stop them transitioning and then score. It's a huge aspect of the game, and they can't have the same type of players running in and butting heads because all you do is get, boom, flipped over and exposed on the back end. Swiz.
That sounds like very North Melbourne, Adelaide like. Yeah, no, definitely.
Flipped over and on the back end. Oh, wow. Right. The innuendo these last couple of pods has been absolutely unreal.
Bloody hell. Yeah, and the other reason why Young's going to be freed up because they've brought in and then they targeted Jordan Clark. So Jordan Clark's going to play halfback flank. You've already got Liam Ryan. You've got Luke Ryan back there who either floats as the third defender but plays that sort of halfback flank, brings it out, intercept mark, but he's got the skills to bring out the ball.
So you've got old mate Dry Lips as well.
Yep, exactly.
Old mate Dry Lips, Mr. Chapman.
It's Mr. Chapman, which and which we'll talk about soon. But yeah, so Hayden Young goes into that midfield if he's not going to get as much of that defensive role, and use those kicking skills. And as we said, and he's got the defensive skills already built into him because he came through the ranks as a defender. So yeah, no, it's a real good one, and we've talked about for keeper leagues. Definitely is a smoky where people are going to dismiss again for the Fremantle factor, but. They might be looking at it going, well, there's always those other players around. He has only played the 13 games so far, so people might be, trying to avoid him. And you might have to pick a real good one up there.
Yep. I don't know if I'll put him in the standard side, but mind you, if he comes out and absolutely dominates, then it might be hard to kind of ignore. But for me, draft leagues, left, right, and center, value is what value does, and you have to pick up people. Because even if you get them around their average, you're getting more than what you bargained for. So they're the ones that we definitely like to look at. Clark as well, definitely good value, 338K midfielder off the half-back line. He could average you 80 to 90 quite reasonably on that Supercoach-friendly role. He's definitely probably going to have that role compared to what he had at Geelong and get a bit more run of the roost there. Chapman for me is probably the big unknown, 275K defender. Basically said he'll play a variety of roles. Now, that suits some people. It looks like he'll be Mr. Fix-It depending on injuries. He can play defensively, multiple types, more defensive or more rebounding, can intercept and kick as well. So I think he'll be the Mr. Fix-It at Fremantle.
Yeah, Heath Chapman, when you're just talking about him, mate, I think he's one to kind of monitor because if you get that one of those long-term injuries, that's where he's going to pick up that kind of role. So he could be a really good waiver one at some point in the year when Luke Ryan gets his normal injury or, there's another injury that goes down where they've got to swap someone else in because he's already playing those multiple roles. He could be an easy one just to fit in for that 6 to 8 weeks. And it could be just a nice little waiver pick there.
Yep, no, I do agree. Next one to go is probably just a couple of little left field ones. Walters, right, average 64.2, 349K. I wouldn't be putting him in standard, but for draft leagues, if you think he might get to an 80 average, you could. The issue is that Walters won't be probably getting that midfield time. He's seen more as like a mentor and stuff at the moment. Definitely had a down year though, so I wouldn't mind putting a Walters like on my bench if you got him late enough because you'll know within the first month what he's doing. And you'll know to just get rid of him for someone else, but at least you know that there's upside. And if he starts to really crack in and get some continuity and confidence, then you've got an absolute winner. And I think I did the same thing with Higgins a few years back. No one wanted Higgins, put him on the bench, and then all of a sudden Higgins Sean Higgins just started to kill it, and I had an 88 average player just sitting there. And it's perfect. No one wants these guys thinking that they're absolutely done, and that's pretty much what you want, potential for your bench spots on your draft. Standard though, Swiz, no go. Him and Squirtowski.
You can't go, and that's the same as you're saying about Walters and Higgins. David Mundy's also in that thing. People don't like in draft leagues touching these old guys. You can always pick them up late, and even in keeper, like got to remember in keeper leagues, depends on how many you set. There's some keeper leagues, I mean, you only get to keep 12 players. There's other you get to keep 20. So you do have to ditch people. So picking up players like Mundy's fine because at least or Walters. It's an easy one to ditch come at the end of the season. So it's not one of those ones I've got to work out 50-50 who I drop. And you're losing nothing for him because you can pick them up late. And look at Mundy last year with his average, and Walters has done it before. So perfect if you can get them in the right round.
Yeah, except Mundy had ankle injury, which was remaining to be managed coming into this year. So I'm not sure how he's tracking just of late, but he did have a pretty nasty ankle injury at the end of last year. So I'm waiting to see how he tracks on that.
Yeah, but
again, he just keeps on keeping on, really.
Yeah, but as we said, like Walters, I think I've seen him going in some round 16, round 17. Like that's your F4, F5, depending on how deep your league is. And Mundy's the same. Like he's going down around that bench spot because people are like, oh God, what is he 36 and he's injured? I'm not touching him, and they just leave him. And somebody will sit there, put him on his bench, and when he gets himself right, if you can have a guy that can slot onto your field, get a couple 80s, 90s, and that's fantastic for a guy that's cost you, practically what's going to become a waiver pick for some people.
Yeah, they're the speculative ones. And not only that, this is probably the year that he actually gets DPP. And you get him, no one wants him. You pick him up super late. He averages you like 90 DPP, bang, easy. So I don't mind that risk to see what role he's playing to start the year when he does come back if he isn't starting originally. If you got a DPP and Mundy's hitting you a 90, man, you're laughing. It's a huge bonus, especially in draft. Anything over like an 85 towards a 90 in deep leagues, 10 to 12 teams with 22 players, 80 plus for those fringe players is absolutely, it's worth its weight in gold. Next one is Dusty Tucker as the last sort of mid-price option, 323K. I was kind of hot on his heels, was considering him in standard even, except for the fact that, probably Berry and Caldwell were cheaper and cheaper wins, unfortunately. But he got injured, Swiz.
Yeah,
Darcy
I'm not
Tucker.
happy. I went out and traded for him in a keeper league because I was really big on him because he was going to have that role. Like that's the one that was going to replace Chera, and now it's going to be Young. So the injuries couldn't be any worse.
Yeah, even a bit of both though. I mean, Tucker was definitely tipped to fill the void, probably primarily. Young's probably going to come in and out a little bit, but they did say playing as an inside mid during match simulation had a grueling off-season running program, and they're talking about like a mid-wing split at that time. So I wouldn't surprise me if like Young was going to go wing and then inside, and then probably float back, and Henry come up on the wing and go forward. I think they're trying to be flexible, Fremantle, and I think they probably have to be. It's tough. What do you do, like a hammy?
The only good thing is because it's a keeper league, it's a long-term investment there. So yeah, he's definitely going to at some point he's going to become useful for me. So I still don't mind the fact I've traded for him. I'm just frustrated. Yeah. So yeah, that is what it is, mate. But yeah, so it's.
Swiz,
I don't think.
Shut the fuck up and listen. Was it a hamstring?
Mate, you go. Yes, I said yes.
Okay, well, yeah, but you said yes in your other sentence. I was like, I didn't know what you're talking about.
To you. Yes, fuck.
Yes. Oh, he said yes, everyone. He said yes. Okay, that was a bit aggressive. We can relax
now. No, go. Fucking get it all out. Mate.
No, that was it. That was just it. I just wanted an answer. I was like, was it his hamstring? I was like, am I high? Am I on crack? Are you a big man? Huh? You wake up and put on your big boy pants. Right, Liam Henry, 228K. Intriguing, Swiz. You are intrigued on the Henry.
I am, because he's that top 10 pick who looks like he's going to be playing some wing role on that. So he's a definite preseason watch, and we don't get the same information with the Freo because I think they've got 2 practice games against West Coast. So it'd be nice that they play somebody else, but it is what it is over there. But yeah, if he lines up on the wing and plays majority time there as a forward option, we talked about this, and Ben's big on this. Instead of some of these first year guys, you're looking at guys who've been in the system 2, 3, 4 years because their body's developed. They've done all the pre-seasons, the fitness work, unlike guys who have come in, especially those who've been affected by COVID and haven't had a chance to play for the last couple of years. Henry could be one of those guys. Well, like, what are we looking at? That 220?
Yeah, 220, 228.
Yeah. So he's slightly more expensive than those top line rookie places like JFH and that, and even the McRae's that people are looking at. So, but the great thing is he's a forward. So you're in that Charlie Curnow kind of range. And if you think, or if Charlie doesn't come through this preseason as well as we hope, and Henry, is getting midfield time, well, it might not be the worst option. The only problem is we haven't seen much scoring from Henry because he's been playing small forward. So that's the big risk with him. But
his scoring's been so flat, it's kind of like Henry from Collingwood.
Yeah. But we saw it with, I think, Daniel Rioli last year. Never been a great scorer, got the right role, and he went about plus 30 on his scoring once he went to that half-back position. So Henry, who's scoring at about 40s, there's no reason if he's playing a wing he couldn't be like a 70 player. And you only really need, we keep saying, that sort of 7, 8, 9 weeks out of him. And what have you been saying about their draw, Ben?
Yeah, soft draw. And it's similar to your Caleb Daniels, was playing forward, then went to a back line and then was scoring well. You look at Dale at the moment, Bailey Dale wasn't scoring that great as a forward. It was still highly rated. They pushed him behind the ball. Next minute he's killing it. So it's one of those things where wings definitely can score ball because they can push forward, they can push back and help out. And he's definitely that kind of mobile X factor kind of player, Henry. So I don't mind him at all. He was definitely highly rated. They were stoked when they got him. And it's just one of those, the skinnier guys with the X factor. Sometimes the X factor guys take a little bit longer to sort of get up and running. So I don't mind him. He's kind of in the similar boat with your Kernows and your Rainers and those kind of things. If he comes out and starts absolutely cracking off, then I might say, okay, well, obviously the role's there. He's looked like he's got the potential. Maybe I'll take a dig. Brodie's in the same sort of boat, 224K, mid forward. Came across from the Gold Coast, looked like he might get a bit of a chop out from the vacancies there, put his good foot forward, and then had a bit of a setback as well, Swiz.
Yeah. And he was one of those guys, which we talk about, maybe some players just aren't up to it. That, like, a high draft pick, looks the goods, clubs were chasing him, hasn't had a proper crack at it, but maybe there's a reason why. Like, I know the same argument's been made about Charlie Constable. Like, why isn't this guy getting games and that? And maybe it is just as simple as there wasn't a spot for him, or maybe the coaches and he just didn't fit in there. But maybe this guy just isn't the football that we thought he was. And it happens with footballers. How many times do we see first round picks just don't make it? And he might not be one of these guys. He's got the opportunity to go in there with Chera missing. But even still, he's pre-season. It's not like I'm hearing great things about, W.Brodie's doing this, W.Brodie's doing that. Definitely, obviously, we've heard with, Sarong, we've heard about Tucker, the Henry discussion we just had. But yeah, I'm not hearing that about W.Brodie, but 10% of people are on him at the moment. I feel like it'll either go one or two ways. He's going to dominate a preseason game, and he's giving me massive Paddy Dow vibes, where he's going to probably go out there, no attention. He's going to rack up sort of 25 possessions, kick a couple goals, and people are going to put him in, and he's going to start the year 20-25%. And then come the season, 3 games in, he's averaging 45, and the people are like, what the hell's going on with this guy?
Well, I'd like to say he couldn't even get a game for Gold Coast, but, Jared Lyons also got delisted from Gold Coast, so it's a hard argument to sell. But I will say this, similar to, remember Jackson Haitley? He left GWS and, he's going to Adelaide and surely he gets a gig at Adelaide and got 3 games. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those things where sometimes they did say some positive things like, yes, he was training well, but they've just picked him up for basically nothing. And they're saying, right, yeah, he's training well. He's putting his best foot forward. And it doesn't mean that he's just going to go out there and dominate because his role is still very much up in the air.
Fremantle didn't even want him. Mate, Fremantle didn't bail. It was because Gold Coast gave pick 19 with him as well, just so they could get his salary off the Gold Coast books.
Off the books.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of Brad Pitt, where they're trading a baseball.
Yeah,
and Moneyball, right? So Moneyball, it's like that. And the guy's just like, yeah, you're paying me like a lot of money. So yeah, I'm kind of a big deal. And he goes, nah, I ain't paying you all that. He goes, yeah, they're paying half your salary. They're paying you. Yeah, they're paying half your salary because they don't want you to play for them. That's how much, you mean to them. Yeah. It's like, what do you want from me? Yeah, it's like that. It's, get you off the books and done. So look, that is what it is. So he's in the discussion for me. when you talk about Brodie. If I come out and I see it, I might get sucked into it. But I think there's so many other better players around the same price point at the moment that have me sold. Basically exactly how it is. There's already, when you break it down, okay, so you got Coleman from Brisbane, who I'm now starting to get big on, right? You've got Cornelio, you've got Rayner, who now Fags has come out saying pretty much Rayner and Bailey are getting first crack at that midfield, and that Neil and Lyons might actually start to push forward or push wide. Oh, don't get me started, right? But it's the same kind of premise. And then you have, Curnow, who's actually had a season or preseason and is probably the fittest he's been since he's been at the club. So I think they're all better price points and all better options, in my opinion.
Yeah, and even Liam Henry, to put that to bed. Henry, we just talked about, mate. Better. It seems like he's got a better role.
I'm waiting for the I factor on that one, but
better role. But he seems to have a better role than Brodie already.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's actually talented, and they actually wanted him, as you said. Okay, let's move on to the rookies, because there is one that has to be in a lot of people's teams, or at least in consideration. O'Driscoll, Swiz. He's a defender mid. He's 123,000. Definitely one who has been impressing and should be in consideration, Swiz.
Yeah, pick 27 in this draft. All the vibes coming out about this kid. He's done nothing wrong in the preseason. He's gone above Neil Erasmus, who we'll talk about in a second, who was the more higher draft pick. But every update that's coming out for him, we don't get as much over the border compared to what you guys get up in Queensland with fish whiting, and then what we get down here in Melbourne. But the sort of limited stuff we get from WA, it's all been O'Driscoll as their number one rookie through the preseason.
Yeah, I was just thinking, when it rains at Driscoll's. Yeah, that's for me. I've got him in my squad. I think I might even have him on field at this point in time. Definitely within consideration. So I'm again waiting to see sort of the preseason games there. Erasmus, I'll let you get onto. Is it Erasmus? 166K. Yeah, so they did say Stella starts his first preseason, and this was end of January. It looks like being the club's first debutant of 2022, which is what the club was saying. So they are definitely rating what he was putting down early. It just depends on, obviously, the performances just before, when you're starting to get into these intra clubs, etc. Are they worth their weight in gold as to whether they actually get a gig or whether they're just outside.
Yeah, well, I was just looking at the Driscoll thing where they had the match sim and he was starting all the centre bounces and showing his strength. Erasmus, that's that more big body midfielder, went with, I think, West Coast. I mean,
is it wrong?
Fremantle. I was going to say that. No, because hang on, no, we've gotten the wrong player there, haven't we? No, because Erasmus, because West Coast were looking at him big.
166,000 midfielder for West.
That's the one. Yeah, because West Coast were big on him and didn't get through to them. And there was talk about the Tigers taking him with their first pick. And
they kept it. They kept it too. That's right.
Kept it. And very similar in the way that Hobbs plays, but he's just probably that little bit more classier. Erasmus by foot. Big bodied again, they've naturally, these young fellas take time to build into their body. I think that's just going to be the little difference, but everyone said he's more likely to play first season, come in and just his disposal by foot. So the issue there is, it's another one of those midfielders, that's expensive. He's in that Ward, Hobbs, Stevens range, and Driscoll seems just to have gone past him a little bit with those centre bouncers. So I think he's going to definitely get game time. It's just about how much game time. And I think maybe early on he'll probably start as a sub or, might get, be that 20-second person in and out of the team.
Definitely seems sub-worthy. And then if there's an injury to, say, Tucker and, say, Brodie, etc., he might get a gig, but then you have two people knocking at the door and they might give him a rest, and the next minute the other player's performance, like, well, now he can't get back into the team. So it's just one of those things. The next one to keep an eye on is Matty Johnston. He's 117K midfielder. He was actually one that looked like he was going to be a sure debutant. I think, was he a mature? I can't remember. He will miss 4 weeks though with a foot injury after a bright start to his first preseason. So he's definitely one who I'll be watching as an upgrade target at this point. I think he will be injured for the start of the season. So Yeah, one to watch, Swiz. Have you got any insight on old mate Johnston?
Yeah, another one big body. It's like they got pick 21. They picked him up at another kid that was in the discussions of going around that 10, 11, 12 mark, and even West Coast first pick. Looking at him, Freo did so well out of this draft, and even their last couple of drafts. So that's why there's a lot of talk about them. But yeah, unfortunately, it's he's more athletic, probably not in the range of as probably athletic as Cox was for Essendon, but he's in that range of that, like 192 centimetre. He's going to be on the wing, really good with hand, really good with foot. And it would have been really exciting to see him start because I think they would have put him in that sort of Nick Cox kind of role, and there would have been a lot of excitement about him. But unfortunately, yeah, the injury is going to put him back for a while. So maybe it could be a good one mid-season or whenever he comes in. We get to see a couple of games of him, and it could be a nice little downgrade option because him slipping to pick 2021 means he's coming out at 117,000.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one to watch there. So I'm interested. The next one I want to talk about is Sam Sturt. Now, he's still injured, I believe. 8th of February, he was noticeable on training sort of, with his duties there. So Sam Sturt, definitely one that could go well. He's 201,000, so definitely more expensive. But he had some real potential, Sturt. He's been injured a couple times. So he's one that's, he might not start the season, but if he comes out with a couple of big scores, I still think he's quite talented, so I'm watching him subtly. Nothing crazy, but again, another one, just a note briefly.
Yeah, I don't like the price, but it's one of those ones neither, now that's been in the system for 3 years.
I think he's talented enough. He got 100 in his first game, remember? Like, it's he's definitely got some talent. It's one of those, you wouldn't want to start him, but if he comes in, and even then upgrading's a pain in the ass because he's too expensive to really maximize cash. So,
well, he was a first-round draft pick in that late first round. So, all those guys, if they've been taken that highly, there's obviously something about them. So, yeah, a watch, and that it would have been good if he'd had the full preseason. He was in there now because he would have put himself ahead of Erasmus and a Driscoll and that, and it's just a shame he hasn't. But, yeah, no, maybe just something to watch throughout the season.
Yeah, sounds good. And that wraps us up for Fremantle. Very much in depth there. A very, very relevant team this year. Pretty much, I think if you put sort of, your North Melbournes and your Adelaides together, you might end up with the same amount of content we had for one team. So thank you very much, Swiz. Always happy to have you. And we'll get on to the G-Long podcast shortly. Thanks,
Always
guys.
a pleasure, Ben.
Thanks, Swizzy. Boy.